Hey there, welcome to my channel, Ro Can Sew. I'm Ro, and this episode is going to be about a recent make. I'm going to talk about the pattern that I picked, the evolution and changes I've made from my previous attempts, how it went this time around, and how I feel about the results. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, let's get started. So I made this pattern, Butterick 5221. Now this is an out of print pattern. It has a semi-fitted waist and hip. It flares out to the hemline from there. It has 3 hem lengths, a knee length, a cropped length, and a full length. It has a straight waistband, seamed, curved side front pockets, mock front fly, back darts, hem cuff option, and the elements of this pant that I like and why I've been working with it is the fly front, the semi-fitted nature of the waist to hip, and the fabric recommendations. It recommends everything from, I think, a lightweight gabardine up to a denim. So I feel like once I get the fit really narrowed in, I feel like this could be a good pattern that could span for dressy and casual wear. So I've made this pattern at least 3 or 4 times over the past few years, and every time I've been making little adjustments to the pattern to try to improve the fit with each attempt. So I'm going to just briefly go over the evolution of the pattern. So my first attempt was with this 100% heavyweight linen. I had made this in a size 12 according to my measurements at that time. However, since then, my measurements have changed, so I decided to retrace the pattern because even though I still wear that linen pair, I just like the way the style of the pants are. I wanted to see if I could get a better fit for my current measurements. So I decided to make a pair out of this floral cotton sateen. This was only intended to be a non-wearable muslin, and I decided to make a size 10 with no adjustments to the rise or waistband or crotch lengths or anything, just to see how that would fit so I would know what I might need to do moving forward. I don't feel overly confident in pants fitting to be able to go off of flat pattern measuring right now. So this seemed like the best way to go about determining what I might need to do. So after making this pair, and I know it's probably hard to tell in the picture just because, well, the busy print for one, but I'll tell you how they felt wearing them. So wearing them, I wasn't a fan of the straight waistband. I felt like there was still some gaping. I also felt that the crotch was not sized appropriately. I feel like it's too long, and I'm not sure whether it is because the waist might not be sitting in the correct location and the waist needs to be adjusted. Would that bring the crotch point up, and would that make it feel more comfortable? Or did I just need to remove some length between the waist and the crotch point to kind of close that in, and would that make the pants feel more comfortable? When I say more comfortable, they do feel comfortable to wear style-wise, but I do kind of fuss with it. I just felt like there was excess fabric in that crotch point, and I wasn't sure whether I needed to pull the waist up, hike the waist down. You know, if I pulled the waist up, then obviously there was less fabric down there, but then the waistband didn't really feel like it was in the best location. So if I let the waistband kind of fall down where it felt more comfortable, then obviously that dropped the crotch point and everything down, and that just felt like excess fabric there. So I ended up remaking the pattern, and this time I made some adjustments to it. So I confirmed that I needed to remove 2 inches of length from the leg to get the cropped version, because up to this point I'd only been making the cropped version. And I decided to go ahead and try doing like a petite adjustment. So I removed 1/2 inch from between the waist and the crotch point on both the front and back pattern pieces. And I felt like that fit a lot better. I don't know if it looks better in the picture or not, but I felt like there was less fabric hanging in the crotch area, and I also felt like the waistband, while I still wasn't thrilled with the straight waistband, it at least felt like it was sitting in a comfortable place above my hip, but not quite at my waist. So it just felt a little more comfortable in that manner. And I thought that the rest of the fit, as far as like the waist and the hip, both the front and the back, I thought that all of that was laying nicely. There wasn't any kind of glaring issues, and the pants felt snug enough without being too tight or too loose. I thought I had a winner, and I could proceed with that pattern and make my denim pair. So the only other changes I wanted to make this time around was that I did not want to make a cropped pair this time. I wanted to make a full length pair. I also really wanted to add back pockets because I thought that I had gotten somewhere with the waist and the hip and the crotch length. I wanted to try the full length, and I wanted to put patch pockets on. So what I did, when I added the length, because I had been previously working with the cropped pattern view, I decided the easiest thing to do, and I know this is not the advisable way to go about it, but this is what I did. I plotted a few points from the bottom of my cropped pattern piece, and I marked 8 inches down from those locations, and then I just connected the dots. I did that because I wanted to make sure. I'm holding the pattern up here. I don't think that you can really tell, but there is a slight curve here. It's not a straight across blunt line, and I wanted to make sure that the full length pants maintained that subtle curve. So that's why I plotted those points, and I did that. Now these pants, as I mentioned, they're fitted at the waist and the hip, and they flare out from there. I'm okay with the flare in the cropped view, but going to a full length, I really didn't want it to be as flared as what I thought the pattern was designed for. So what I chose to do, and again, this might not be the recommended way to go about it, but this was what I did. I chose to pick a location on the inner leg seam and the outer leg seam where it seemed as if the pattern was dropping right at the hip point and kind of straightening out from there. And on the inner leg seam where it curves in, wherever it got to the innermost curve, but was at a location that I thought I could easily duplicate on both pattern pieces, I picked that location and I marked that. And where it ended up falling for me was at just below the notch on the inner leg seam and just below the notches on the outer side seam. So I drew a line on my pattern piece at both of those locations, and I made sure to duplicate this on both the front and the back pattern pieces. And then I took my yardstick and I lined it up with the pattern, and I just dropped a straight line down to the hem that I had already created at the bottom. And I did this on my fabric. I didn't alter the pattern piece. I just made those notations on my fabric, which is great to try to duplicate that for the future. But that's what I did. And it just removed a little bit of the flare and ensured that if I had followed this line and kept going out down 8 inches, my hem would have been much wider than the pattern was designed for. But by dropping the straight line down, it was cutting off some of this here and just keeping it. I just wanted the pants to kind of be semi-fitted through my hips and just drop straight down from there. That's what I thought I wanted. So that's why I did it this way. The other thing that I wanted to do with these pants that I mentioned was that I wanted to put back pockets on them, and the pattern does not call for back pockets. So I have a basket, and whenever we have old wearable denim, we just throw it in the basket. So I found a random pocket that was left in there from a pair of my pants that I no longer wear, and I took the last edited pattern of these pants, that dark brown pair, the last one that I showed you. I put that on and I pinned the pocket onto my bum and I tried to contort in front of the mirror to try to figure out where I thought the best location for a pocket would be, someplace that wasn't too high or too low and wasn't too close to any of these seam lines. And when I figured out a location I thought was best, I just carefully took off the pants and I laid my pants on top of the fabric pieces that I had traced out onto my denim, and I chalked that onto the back pieces. And then I used this pocket as a template to create the pockets to go on the back. And I will say, I think this was successful. I think that the pockets ended up in a decent location. I like where they're positioned. I like that they're usable. I'm okay with the shape and the size. So now I have to figure out how to get that transferred from my pants onto my pattern pieces for future use. But that was a win. So yeah, so those were the two adjustments that I wanted to make to the pattern from where I thought I had successfully gotten my pattern to. Now, when I cut out my fabric, I laid my pattern pieces on the fabric and I chalked around them and I cut my pattern pieces out. I started the construction. Initially, I had wanted to do decorative top stitching on these pants. I thought I was going to have a nice pair of black denim pants and I was going to do some decorative top stitching in some variegated threads similar to my husband's jacket. The only top stitching that I ended up doing was just to the front pockets, to the front pocket openings. There's just a little bit of top stitching right there. And that's the only place that there's top stitching on my pants. And the reason is because I lost my confidence and I started to get insecure about the changes that I was making, especially to the back pockets. And I decided I didn't want to draw any attention to the back pockets because at the time of construction, I wasn't yet sure of their placement. And I thought if I had a bunch of top stitching on there, it would be very obvious if they ended up looking wonky. So I didn't do any more top stitching on the rest of the pants. I just left everything black. Where things started to go awry. So I put the waistband on and I got ready to put the buttonhole on. And this is where I ran into some problems. So I did not cut enough of the seam allowance off on the waistband. And part of that is probably because I was scarred. Part of that is probably because I was scarred from my previous project. I had worked on my husband's jacket and I cut too much seam allowance off on the sleeve placket and I ended up ruining the sleeve. So I had the opposite thing happen on these pants. I got nervous about cutting away too much of the seam allowance and I ended up leaving too much in. And this is only a 1-inch wide waistband, so there's a lot of bulk in there. So when I tried to put the buttonhole in, I was kind of struggling to get through all the layers of fabric. And then to make it worse, I also failed to remove the metal teeth from the portion of the zipper that extends up into the waistband. Let me show you what happened. I don't know if you can see that well, the shape of my needle. This is a heavy-duty denim specialty needle, and it didn't break, but it's got a nice bend in it. So yeah, I had to deal with that. Unfortunately, because I already enclosed the waistband and everything, I did not want to try to unpick that and go about tearing it out. So I just replaced the needle and very carefully went back to business and just tried to not hit the zipper teeth that time. And I hoped that everything was well. So I'd finished that and I went to put the button, sewed the button on, and then I couldn't get the button through the buttonhole. So my machine has the presser foot where you put the button into the presser foot and the machine will automate the buttonhole size in accordance to the button that you have chosen, in theory, to get the correct size for your button. I did that, and I know that I cut the buttonhole up as fully as possible, but the button was not gonna fit. I don't know if it was maybe the shape of the button was a little domed. I don't know, but there was no getting that button through the buttonhole. And it was a little frustrating because I'd already sewn it on. I'd drawn blood sewing it on because of all the layers of the seam allowance that were left in there. But I got that figured out, and I got a new button put on, and that one works, so I was good to go with that finally. So the only issue I ran into then was that when I did put the button on the second time around, I think I was kind of frustrated at that point and the button isn't positioned the best. So I don't know that you'll be able to tell on camera, but if you can see, it kind of pokes out right here. And the reason is that this button, the zipper pull, because of where I put the button at, the zipper pull, instead of laying flat now, I kind of pulled one side a little tighter, and it's kind of turned a little bit. So it's not the end of the world. I can just take the button out and reposition it, but that will make the waistband just a slightly wider. And that's where we lead into the other issue that I have. When I finished making the pants and I tried the pants on, I was disappointed for a few reasons. So first of all, it was loose. The waistband was loose. The waist, the hips were loose. Obviously, the width of the leg was wide. I knew that the leg would be wide, but I wasn't prepared for them to feel as, I just wasn't prepared for the volume that they were. You can let me know what you think. I don't think they look bad in the photos. It's just that I'm not used to wearing pants that are that wide at the bottom. And I'm only 5 feet tall. I'm small, so I easily get consumed by too much volume. And it's just initially it was a little overwhelming with the size of the pant legs. But what was really frustrating was, again, the excess ease that I was having in the waist and the hip area. And I don't know what happened, because the last pair that I made fit much more snugly, and these are much looser. I don't know if when I chalked my pattern piece outline onto my fabric, did I chalk just enough outside of the pattern piece? And then when I cut it, is it possible that I cut just outside of that line? And did each of these little decisions kind of add up to then, they're not like horribly big, they're still wearable, but it's just big enough where it's just noticeably not as secure feeling as the pair I previously made. So that was somewhat disappointing. Also was the hem length. So as I told you, I added 8 inches to the cropped version, and I only serged the edge and I turned the serge up, and then I turned that one more time, and then I hemmed that. So it's got a very small hem. And I have it pictured with a pair of white tennis shoes just because it's black denim. I thought it would be easier to visualize the hem length and everything if I had some starkly white shoes to be able to see the contrast. I don't know if I would wear it with white shoes, but I'm not a style expert, so that's another area of exploration. But that's just not where I normally wear my pant hem at. And this is just a struggle for me, trying to find the appropriate hem length for full length pants. It's just not something I've done long enough. I don't typically wear a wide enough range of styles of clothing to feel comfortable with all these adjustments. I'm kind of a find what works and then make that 4,500 times versus try 4,500 different types of styles. It's just how I am. But once I got over the overwhelm of just the style difference, I accepted the size that it felt a little looser, and I decided that they were still wearable, and I started to come around and re-like my make. I don't know if anyone else goes through that. I'm one of those people. I hear people who make something and it's their newest favorite thing, and I'm not really that person. I usually obsess over my make, and I put so much energy and effort into it that when I'm done, I typically need a break from it. I don't really like it right away, right after finishing it. And then after some time, I appreciate it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is nice. I don't know why I didn't like it. But usually right after I make something, there's just a lot of emotions that have gone through, and I need a break. So once I started to acclimate myself and got used to those things and started to come around, I was like, these pants are okay. I can wear this. I don't know why I was upset about it. And then that's when I noticed, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but on the back of the pants, right in the center of the center back seam, if you can see this lighter patch of fabric here, as I was starting to really change my attitude about my pants, I then noticed that area. And what that is somehow I managed to catch the fabric on something. and there's a pull and a fray of fabric there, and there's actually 2 holes in the denim. So that's kind of annoying. Surely I can go back and fix that. I can probably just put a piece of denim under it, do a regular denim patch, maybe, you know, zigzag over that and stuff with some black thread. It might not be overly noticeable, although it's in a pretty obvious location. Um, but being right in the center of the back at like your stress point of your seat and everything, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to feel confident wearing them out in public. I don't think that that would be compromised, especially after I patch it, but I also don't want to feel like I have this nagging thought in the back of my head of are my pants opening back there? So yeah, that was a little frustrating. That's the story of my pants. That's how we got to where we are. I do like this pattern. I do want to continue to make it and continue to work on pattern adjustments. I would like to make them again. I don't know if the next time, if I would make the pants as wide. This is a heavyweight denim, so it's possible that even if I made the same adjustments to the width, reduce the width just like I did on these pants, if I make it out of a linen or a more flowy, lighter weight fabric, they might not hold their shape quite as much, and they might kind of drop down more and sort of flow, and that might give an entirely different look to these pants. I definitely like where the pockets are positioned. I would like to still make some sort of an adjustment to the waistband because I still feel like that's a little bit big. And I don't know if it is the nature of the straight waistband. One of the other pants that I've made recently, actually 2 of the other pants that I've made recently, they both have curved waistbands, and those just feel more comfortable. But if I were to make a curved waistband, I would want to make a 1.5-inch wide curved waistband. This waistband is only 1 inch, so there's a lot more thought that would go into that. I did try that, I think, once before. Some time ago, I messed about trying to do that on a pair of pants, and I didn't like the results back then. So that's not to say that this time I wouldn't get better results, but I have to kind of be in the headspace for that. And I don't know that I have the capacity levels for that right now. Life has really been lifing. The past 4 years have been a lot, and life just has not, it's just wearing me out. So my capacity for certain types of fitting issues is really not high, let's say. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble and talk about my pant making process. Hopefully somebody found that interesting or relatable in some way. Maybe if you have a commiserating type of story, you could leave it in the comments for me. I might appreciate the company. And let me know what you think of the pants regardless. And yeah, I think that's everything for this video. Yeah, so until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.